Now, if you're in my generation, you think of information leaks and espionage in terms of, the big bad Russians sitting in a dark bunker trying to break into our systems. Or if I take you back maybe a few more years, you think of Matthew Broderick and war games trying to, put the phone on the modem and then trying to hack into Pentagon. That's the mindset that my generation grew up with, and it's hard to get rid of that. But the truth is that the risks are real. And the second truth is that the threats apply to all businesses. What happens again is that only the Equifax or Target or Sony or Yahoo breaches hit the newsreels. And that's all we are exposed to. So we get this false assumption that it doesn't affect me. Because I'm not a Yahoo, because I'm not Microsoft, because I'm not a big corporation, this doesn't happen to me. This will not happen to me. But the truth is that the threats apply to all businesses. And one of the classic examples we use with our commercial or retail clients is that the credit card that the client uses at Target or to buy music off Sony is the same credit card they're using at your mom and pop shop. So for a hacker, the easiest way to get information is to go the path of least resistance, which may be your systems. So the threats apply to all businesses. And finally, the impacts of the breach are significant. Many folks think, we don't have a big customer base. We do not have a whole lot of information. We don't store health records for our customers. But the truth is that the business is impacted by a data breach, regardless of the size of your organization. We're going to talk about that briefly in a moment as well. Just a few trends. There's already a tremendous increase in data breaches now that they are being reported more regularly as well. In 2016, there was about a 160% increase in reported data breaches across the world. Canada is the third most breached country in the world after the US and the UK. Now, given those trends, the governments are starting to step up. So EU, for example, is implementing some new regulations that companies have to comply with starting in 2018 in terms of protecting client data. And of course, many of the companies, ours as well included, many of the clients are asking contractors to come in with an information protection insurance in place before they engage anyone. And lastly, the trend that we've seen is that these attacks are not just about theft of data, but also manipulation of data. And I think the classic example we can recall is the US elections and all the brouhaha around all of that. The impacts on business. The first and the biggest one, of course, is that your business operations shut down. There's direct costs to that, such as shutting down the operations, which means you're not selling, you're not producing, you're not manufacturing, you're not meeting with your clients because you have a breach and you need to contain that. You need to figure out what the breach is about and how to contain that. There's also damaged relationships and negative public relations. Of course, that's. Number 4 is perhaps the one that folks in this room are probably most concerned about, and that's disclosure of proprietary information. If you have customized processes or patented technologies, a breach of that could actually affect your business significantly. I'm going to keep skipping here. The cost, the dollar side of the breaches. In Canada, it's about $255 per breached record. If you have 10 customers, well, that's about $2,500. If you have 100 customers, it's $25,000. So you can see that the effects and the impact start to compound with this. Also in Canada, about 62% of data theft victims are mid to small size businesses. 72% have suffered a data breach, end up closing shop within 24 months. And that's because they've lost the trust of their supply chain partners. Their suppliers, their customers do not want to do business with them because there's no guarantee about the integrity of their information. Some of these vulnerabilities tie into your cyber and IT countermeasures, the insufficiency of those countermeasures. There's also the gaps in your policies and procedures. Who are you hiring? Are you doing proper checks and balances around the background of the employees that you're bringing in? What about privacy protection? Is your information properly classified? Do your employees know what that means? How are they treating information? How are they handling information? Are they storing it properly? Are they destroying it properly? Is the laptop that you leased from Dell going back to Dell with all the personal information on it, or is it being sanitized before it leaves your premises? Sloppy and indifferent, complacent attitudes. That's very common when it's a small or mid-sized company, but it's also very prevalent in bigger organizations. People just don't care. If it's the end of Friday before a long weekend, will someone take the extra 10 minutes to make sure that the information is properly secured, or are they just going to leave it until Tuesday and hope for the best? There are some of the examples, some Canadian examples. Of course, we're not going to go through all of those. WestJet, WRHA, Vertical Scope, Alberta Health Ministry, and so on. The institutions, educational institutions, are becoming a bigger target because somehow they are always, they seem to be one of the industries that's on the back end as far as catching up with the security profiles and security information. Here's some of the information that, types of information that we believe your industry captures. Intellectual property, I think, is at the top. Financial data, partner and third-party information. I'm not going to go through, again, all of those, but one of these boxes breached can impact your business significantly. Two or more or any of these can have a tremendous impact on your business in the long term as well as in the short term. So what are some of these threats? We categorize the threats into two categories. Category one is the internal threats. Talked about mistakes and sloppy processes. Disgruntled employees. We never think our employees are disgruntled. We always think it's our competitors who have disgruntled employees. But it happens. It happens. Leaks, conflicts of interest, unauthorized access, loose lips, and storytelling. You know, this is one of those things that makes my job, and Brent Patton, who's not here today, but he's our senior security consultant, it makes for very awkward Saturday night get-togethers with friends. Because all of our friends are talking about, hey, you know, I'm at work, we're developing this, we're doing this, and we sit there as security consultants and we can't share anything because we're holding information of our clients that could potentially compromise them. So we just sit there and drink with them while they tell us all their stories. So the internal threats, about 90% of senior managers felt that their organizations are vulnerable to an insider attack. Someone who is not happy with the organization, or someone who's just sloppy and doesn't know how to manage information properly. Same thing, 3/4 of large organizations suffered a breach that was internal in nature. The second category is the external threats, and this is I think the sexier side of security, if you will. This is when someone is maliciously trying to come in and compromise your information. So hacking, of course, you know, the guy in the hood sitting in a basement, in his mom's basement, trying to hack into your system. There's malware, ransomware. We've seen a rise in that. You can buy code for ransomware on dark web for peanuts, and you can configure it and deploy it and hold someone in ransom or for ransom. Phishing is classic. You know, the CRA email that comes to you that says, hey, you've got a refund from CRA. Send us your bank information so we can deposit that. Well, first of all, if CRA is sending you an email about a refund, that's a miracle in itself. And if they're asking you to send you anyways, let's keep moving. Then there's the password attacks. These are brute force attacks, denial of service attacks. Man in the middle. This is very common and very little known. This is when you're sitting at a coffee shop and you log into Starbucks Wi-Fi system or Tim Hortons Wi-Fi, and you're logging into your bank account, and someone injects themselves in that transport or in that connection. And what they do is they capture your credential information, and 99% of the time they will not interrupt your connection or give out any indication that they have your credentials. But they will capture your credentials, and now they know which bank you bank with and what your bank card is and what your password is. So that's very common. Drive-by downloads, rogue software, social engineering, and of course hardware theft, leaving your hardware sitting around. One of the companies I used to work for had a very, very strict policy around putting your laptop, if you were traveling, putting your laptop in the trunk of your vehicle before you left company offices. And that way, when you go to, pull into a keg parking lot or Moxie's, you're not taking your laptop out of the back seat and putting it in the trunk. No one knows that you have a device with you.